You need to go lay down.
You got your
Hey
the car
everyone, we
tomorrow, George.
are live. Welcome to another Monday night chat. Today's a special one. We have Shotgun Dave in the house. We have Danny Wiley in the house. George Muddy again is under community service, so yeah, he is busy. He's doing community service with some sound
Cinderella.
for some production, so he won't be with us. And MP is once again very busy with work, so he won't be with us. But we do have some really, really talented individuals in front of us today. So we should be pretty entertained. Let's see who's in the house. So the fingers. Oh man, the
The
fingers
fingers is
is in the
always in the house.
house. Yeah, Bo is in the house from Germany. Thank you, Bo. Flocka Wildman's in the house. Jim Anthony.
Jim Anthony,
These
good
guys.
scratch builder.
Yeah,
Just
another good scratch
card.
Yeah.
builder.
Just a
John
good
Tucci's
card.
in the house. And let's see.
Callahan,
Gareth,
Cyber.
Garth is
Yeah.
in the house.
Dean Callahan's here.
Gene Callahan.
Carol's here. What's up, Carol?
Yeah.
Tucker Wildman.
Deck Knight.
Oh,
DeLeon is in the house. Ragtop Pat. Boone. Hey, Boone, how are you? Steve Sweeney's in the house. Let's see. Cyberg's in the house. Gary Dunmore. Yeah, people are rolling in. Ron Fast. Gladstone Gander. All right. Anyway, we'll keep on checking. But let's get started. Let's talk about. I haven't had Dave on for a long time. I haven't had Danny on for a while. So let's get caught up. See what's happening. How you guys doing? How's
Doing
everything
good.
going?
Yeah.
Busy.
Yeah. Danny, you've been crazy with those 3D prints. So talk to me about how you got started in that. What's learning curve? You have to talk to me about lots of things. You have to talk to me about your track build. You have to talk to me about your 3D printing. So take it away, Danny.
Just froze.
Tell us how it's going. Danny? Is he frozen?
Rose.
He's frozen.
Oh no. He looks like he's on there, but he's gone.
He's Encino Man.
Oh no. Oh,
There he
he's
is.
back. He's back. There you go.
Oh, it's connection.
Well, while Danny's fixing his connection, Dave, how's things going?
Going good. Busy.
Yeah. So you're working a couple of scratch builds right now?
Yeah, we got a couple of them going all at the same time here, trying to get things ready for various races we got coming up.
Yeah. Um, anything in particular you have to show us, or anything that you're extremely proud of at the moment, or working on that you think is of interest?
Well, I'm just about to finish this one up today. I don't know if it'll
Ooh,
even,
nice.
it's not even. It's already. It's in pieces still. It's not ready yet, but it's
Yeah.
getting there. But yeah, this was going to the Hot Rods to HRW.
Yeah.
I already got one in there already, but I decided I needed a second one. I think George made me do it.
He normally does that.
Yeah, he does. He's quite the driver. He drives a lot of this stuff. So, but yeah, so I decided to do this one, and I've been frantically trying to get it done. It's got to be in there. What, next week? 20th? Yeah,
Yeah, the 21st. Now. I got
21st. So yeah, I've got a few days left to get it done and get it in a box. But yeah, so that's been the main focus right now is this thing.
Yeah. And yeah, I saw your car that you submitted already. I saw Harry running around the track. I was talking to you about it earlier. It's really cool because, like I was saying to you, like the first time you see it, you just see it as a car, right? I saw the patina, I saw that rough finish. I was like, oh, that's cool. But then the second
Right.
time I watched it, because I watched that video a couple of times, there's so many cars. You need to watch it again, right, to actually see all the
Right.
details. And the second time, I noticed the interior and everything you had done there, and I thought it was just fantastic. So, yeah, it's like hats off to everyone that's submitted a car to Harry's stuff. it blows
Thanks.
my mind, you know.
I agree. Every car so far that's been sent in has just been like
Yeah.
they're fantastic. All of them. Everybody's got different levels of build, and everybody's got different levels of skill, but they're all just killing it with this scratch building stuff. I'm really impressed with what everybody's doing right now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So we have Harry there. He says, "Don't be late." The host is an asshat about timing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. Hopefully, I think when I finish the track build that I'm working on right now, for sure, I want to get into something custom for sure. It's definitely like something on my bucket list to get checked off. And I know once I start one, I want to do more. But it's the first thing is just get one going. But like I said, right now I'm so busy with the track build I got, and I got to get that completed to a point where I can start shooting videos again. Because right now I'm not shooting videos.
Right.
So yeah, that's something that's really on my agenda.
Well,
So,
without giving anything away, we've got something big coming here pretty quick. So
yeah.
it will help all you guys that want to get going on building stuff. And I think you're all going to like it. So, like I said, I can't divulge anything yet because it's not 100% finalized. But George did you get your Falfa car?
Yeah.
George and
I
Harry
built
and I have
another
been
one.
talking behind the scenes, trying to get this thing going with Steve over at SCC. So we've got something big coming.
Yeah. So my thoughts were the one thing that I know from a Canadian perspective that we suffer with on the custom side is just getting everything, all the components together. Like I got bits and pieces. Like George helped me with getting all my materials, like the building materials. So like the pin board and all that. I have all that, but I don't have the brass. I don't have all the little things that I need to actually put a chassis together. So
Right.
it'd be nice if there was a kit that was coming out that you just do one purchase and boom, you get one delivery with everything in it. I think that would be awesome. I wish somebody would probably do something like that. That would be really good. But yeah, that's the one thing that really deters me. It's just I just want to have one place. I just want to get everything at once, and then I can just sit down and kind of put my head together. But right now, I'm scratching. Oh, where do I get my brass from? Where do I get my tongue guide from? Where do I get my my mounting brackets from? Like I need, and yeah, you say SCC, but then I'm like, okay, so I'll have to wait now, order it before I come down to see Marty and them, then pick it all up and then come back, right? So, yeah, so that's one thing that I think would help out. It's the same thing. Like right now, I'm learning about LED lighting, right? So lighting up LEDs and programming them, and it's the same thing. Like you buy an LED light kit and you start there. You buy an LED tape kit with the connectors, and you can play around with that. And it's all these little kits that you buy, and then you get a hang of it, and it just gets you started with the basics. But then once you have your basics, you then expand it because you know better, right? But
Yeah.
I think that would really be a good thing to go. Yeah, see, like John Tucci said, maybe I'll try it if I could get a kit as well. Yeah, I think lots of people would appreciate that. Let's see, Danny's back. Hey, Danny. You got your connection all sorted out?
Yeah. Internet.
And man, he's unfrozen now.
Yeah. Yeah, so for sure, Harry says he's got something coming up. So, George, how's it been with you?
Busy. Building,
Busy.
painting, putting decals on.
Oh, nice.
My entry for the showdown. American, that's the first time I've done a fade paint job, so you see
Yeah.
fade.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's
And
a killer
it.
paint job right there.
That is cool. Very cool. Yeah, see, everyone has the same thing. I agree. Right now, it's really difficult, confusing to get a source of all correct parts. But once I get going, it'll become easier. Yeah, exactly. I think, just a beginner's kit, something to get us started, to build your first chassis. Like, if we could just get a kit where you get your model, you get all your pieces, you can build, with that one kit, you can build your first chassis. I think everybody would get started. Because I think
All
once
I
you
can
knock out the
say
first one,
is to everybody, just hang tight for now. When the
yeah,
Winterfest comes, you'll just see. Just right now, just hold off.
yeah,
Yeah, I
perfect.
was just gonna say if you're contemplating buying stuff right now, just wait. Just wait.
Wait,
Yeah,
Wait a
wait
week or
for
so.
Winterfest. Winterfest is when in like when is it? December, or November? I can't remember.
I think
It's
it's
near.
November.
I think November.
November, I
So
believe. Yeah.
we'll hold off to do a showdown car at that point where you can send it in. If something's coming up, just hold off for now. So okay, until something's announced on the Stock Car
Yeah,
Sunday chat that we do.
yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, see, even Harry said, "What a car, George." That was beautiful.
Yeah, that one's killer right there.
Yeah,
The first time I've done that type of paint job, so that
Like I
was
said, we're gonna on you, Gene Winfield, with your fade paint jobs.
yeah. I messed
yeah,
up a little bit on the white, but I was able to recover it, and then I could use decal. See, this is the thing about now we'll talk about painting. When you a lot of things when people and I've done it on a video for a video of painting a Buick that Harry sent me a mold of a Buick. It was purplish, like with gold sparkle and silver. That was a screw up. And if you watch that video, I explain that when you have an error, do not take it as a negative. There's a way to recover from those. There's always markers, there's always decals, there's always a little doing little things here that you can hide that stuff. So it doesn't have to be perfect. So that's what people get discouraged about in the painting is they
Right.
paint something that looks like it like they're not happy with it. Or if there's a mistake, there's a way to get out of it. I mean, you could start from scratch too if it's a resin and you're using water-based paint. Stick it in water and get it all off. I had to do that 4 times on that blue Ford that I sent. That blue Ford, that thing was really frustrating. I kept putting tape and I kept ripping the tape with the paint off. And I did that like 3 times and I was kind of really frustrated. So you just have to know I wasn't using the right primer. And again, those mistakes happen, so you have to remember don't get yourself frustrated. There's a way to recover from it.
Yep. Yeah, and even if you do have to wash it off, I've washed off a few myself. And like I say, I spent my entire life, that was my career, was painting real cars and airplanes for 35 years, and I've washed a couple of those off too. So there's always a way to fix it.
So, Danny, we're trying to get caught up with you. I asked a long-winded question and then you froze up. Maybe it was my pro. It was because my
And he's
question
the
was too
resident
long.
master now.
Yeah.
So,
We're not
We're not worthy. We're not worthy. Danny's got that
so
resin down good, man. Those bodies are
yeah.
great.
So, Danny, let's talk about 3D printing. You started to do some crazy cool stuff. So talk about what got you into 3D printing, and then how your progression is going, and showcase some of the stuff you've been 3D printing. So I think a lot of people have heard us talk about it, but maybe you can showcase it off. And I know you do your own YouTube, but this is a good place for us to all share and give you kudos.
Yeah. So I've been 3D printing for 2 years now, maybe 3 years, but off and on. I mean, I might print something here and there, and then take a break from it for 3 or 4 months until, I guess, recently in the past few months with the slot car stuff. So I was using a FDM printer or filament printer, and that's good for some things. And then I come across a guy on YouTube, or on YouTube, on Facebook Marketplace, that had a resin printer, and he wanted to do a trade. So I traded him a Nintendo Switch Lite for a full resin printer and the cleaning station and curing station. So I got a pretty good deal on that. I appreciate the guy, and that was a bumpy road with the resin printer. It was used, and so it took me probably almost 3 weeks to get a print off of that thing.
Yeah.
So, and then most of the stuff I used to print was just, I printed like a little headphone stand for my son for his gaming headphones, and printed little toys, the articulating butterflies and snakes and dragons and stuff, but that wasn't very useful for me anyway. So once the slot car stuff come along, then I was like, well, I could probably do something with this. And I ran across a few places like CG Trader and Colts 3D or something, I think is what it is. And they've got a lot of stuff on there to print. So the good stuff you got to pay for.
What's the name of it, Danny? One of the guys was asking that question, where you get your 3D prints.
Yeah, so Gene Cal is asking where you get your 3D printing models from.
Yeah, so that'd be CG Trader and Colt 3D. Darn
I have that
dogs.
problem too.
There's like nobody here. My wife's gone. Everybody's gone, so I don't know what they're barking at. Hey, that's enough. But anyway, so CG Trader, Colt 3D, and then obviously Thingiverse is a great place to get free stuff from. So, and then as far as what I've been printing, I got a little thing of goodies right here. I got some, oh, wrong side. Some wheels here.
Yeah, there's a wheel inserts, right?
Yep, wheel inserts. This was my first successful resin print.
Yeah, I think everyone prints that because I actually have 2 of him printed in clear resin.
Yeah,
That's the first because when I was looking for models for 1/32 scale, I found that exact model and I tried to get him down to 1/32 scale size. That and the guy who's pointing with his cap on. I think I have a couple of those kicking around somewhere. But I printed the same model too.
then she's a little smaller than 132, but
Got long legs.
yeah, she does.
It's long legs.
Here's a steering rack assembly. It's kind of hard to see in the clear. Here's some bigger wheel inserts. They're like 20-inch.
Nice.
I got a motor in here somewhere. There's a this is an engine. It's in clear too, so it's kind of hard to see. But I have the valve cover in here that goes to it, and the intake manifold, exhaust manifold. There's a turbo kit for it. Here's to go behind the wheel insert. Here's a disc brake.
Oh, nice.
It's kind of hard to see, but here's some of these turned out on here, and then some of them didn't. But there's a fuel cell, another engine block, and the intake manifold is on there as well. So there's most of that. Just odds and ends, and then I guess I can show my bodies. I haven't done anything with these bodies yet. So here's one. This one turned out super thin. It's almost as light as see, like this one just broke. It's like, I mean, it's very, very thin. It's like Lexan thin. I didn't figure it'd last. Which the good thing about this is super glue.
Yeah.
I'll hold this together, or I can even take resin, paint resin on here with a brush, and then cure it again, and it'll be good as new again. Sand it back down, and you'll never notice. Not a lot of people have seen this one. This is the Ring Brothers Javelin.
That's nice.
Cool.
So it's actually, even at an angle, it was a little bigger than what the printer could print. So it cut off the spoiler there. So I'll have to fix that with something. But otherwise, it turned out pretty good.
Well, it's a duck spoiler, right? So you can easily put that back.
Yeah, duckbill, yeah.
Yeah.
And then this BMW touring wagon. It turned out pretty good.
Oh, the new one too, Beaver Tooth.
Yeah. And I got these. It's 3D printable STL.com, or maybe it's .net. I don't remember, but it's 3D printable STL, and all he has pretty much on there is cars from all manufacturers. He's got a few planes and semis and stuff, but it's mainly cars.
So De Leon wants to know how many hours did it take to print that javelin?
Most of these take about 12 hours.
Yeah.
So
So Danny, I know like we do printing. One of the main concerns that we have when we buy files is supports, because a lot of them don't have proper support structures, and then the print will collapse as it's printing up in the resin. Do you have to go through, and when you got these models, do you have to go through and put the supports in yourself, or do they come
yeah,
pre-supported?
so the slicer I use is Lychee, which I
Okay.
pay for.
Yeah.
I pay a yearly subscription for it, and I use it for my FDM printer and for my resin.
Yeah.
So it'll auto generate supports for me.
Okay.
You can do it in light, medium, and heavy.
Yeah.
And so I'll do medium supports, and then I'll go back in with heavy supports. And here at the bottom, because when the car prints, it prints upside down.
Yeah.
So a lot of the pressure is going to be right here. So I'll add heavy supports here, and then in the middle, and then up here up front, so that it has something good to hold on to. And this is everybody was they liked that Acura from Scale Auto, so I went and printed this Acura,
Nice.
which is pretty similar.
Yeah.
It's more of a time attack edition.
Yeah, lots more arrow in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we've noticed. And the other thing that I noticed with the 3D printer is anytime you have something that's very enclosed, when you're curing it, you have to actually have a hole that you can put the UV light through so it cures on the inside. Because if the resin doesn't cure on the inside, as it dries, it will just explode. It will just crack and explode.
So luckily with these bodies and stuff, I don't have to worry about any of that. And I didn't do that with the camera guy either.
Yeah.
So far, so good. He hasn't exploded on me.
Yeah, we've had a couple of models just shatter,
Obliterate. Yeah.
Datsun.
And this is old Datsun, but it has, I don't know the full name, but the short name for it is a Hako body kit. It has a vented hood and fender flares and stuff on it, little spoiler on the back. So it's a pretty popular if you look it up. So I liked it and thought I'd print it. And all these, I go and look up the actual dimensions of the car, the real car, and then I scale it down using a scaler. Now I might have to go back and, like the Javelin, I took the dimensions, and then I have that Scale Electrics, the Camaros, and so the dimensions are pretty close to that. So I made sure that this, if I wanted to, would fit that chassis.
That's
Nice.
132nd.
So yeah, 1/32 scale. Yeah, all of these are. My printer is not big enough to do 1/24th, so which isn't a bad thing. And then as far as FDM filament printing, here's a 1/32 scale shipping container that I did. I still got to get dowels for the door, but it's hard to see. It's black, but the doors do open, and a 1/32 scale slot car fits right in there. So I have plans with these. I actually have 2 of these so far. I need to do, I think, another 3. So, but printing is, it can be difficult, and it has to be something that you want to sit down and mess with.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the roughly 3 years that I've been printing, I'm still not a professional. I don't sit down every single day and mess with it. It's here and there, a week in there, you know. So you have to want to mess with it. Luckily, these days, printers are a lot more sophisticated they were than 3 years ago. So I just bought an Anycubic Cobra, and that thing it's cheap, and way better than my Ender 3 V2. Way better.
What does it
So
print? 16 microns or the
it's
resolution on it?
it'll do 0.2 for the resolution.
Okay.
It'll supposedly it'll do a lot more higher resolution than that, but 0.2 is the average. You know, if you go below that, like 0.18 or 0.1, I mean, it's going to take forever to print.
Yeah.
Like these, the shipping containers, I've printed them at 0.3 at 150%. So it printed pretty quick. One of them I did at 100%, and it took 12 hours. And this one at 150% took a little over 6 hours.
Right.
So
Gene has a question for you, Danny. Well, can you also scale the body to be a bit thicker in order to avoid breaking it? I think it gets very complicated, no?
You would have to go get a mesh mixer and do that. And I've never messed with that. So luckily these bodies from 3D printable STLs, he's sent in most of the cars, he has different thicknesses. And I didn't realize that at first. So this one is super thin. So there's 2 more files to make this thicker. All these other ones, there was only one thickness, but this is pretty thick. This is as thick as a regular slot car body. So I guess just pay attention when you buy a file. Sometimes in the description it'll say that there's different thicknesses. You just kind of have to play around with it.
Nice.
Which, like I said, I didn't even know with that car until afterwards.
Cool. So yeah, anybody else have any questions on 3D printing? Danny's in the house, and he'll be happy to help. I know
There's a lot to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to make anybody not want to do it, because if you want to, I mean, I would suggest starting with an FDM printer.
Filament,
I mean, the Anycubic Cobra that I got, I literally downloaded a file, put it in there, hit print, and good to go. Factory settings, I fine tuned to make it look better, but right out of the box, print's perfect.
Perfect. All right, so we got our printing done. We got the bodies. So the next thing we have to do is prep those for paint. So I know, Dave, you've got a couple of prints from Danny. So talk us through getting from the print to the stage where you start to apply paint. What would you have to go through? I know that Danny's models, the resin models, normally come out very, very smooth. They're not like the filament printing, so you don't get all the striations.
Right.
So let's talk about painting and getting ready for paint. What are your steps, procedures to get there?
Well, on a 3D print, it's different than probably like on a white kit or a resin car or whatever. This is Danny's print right here. It's a fantastic print, by the way, Danny.
Thank you.
It's very smooth compared to quite a few other ones that I've had, and I showed Danny the one that I had here before that just looks like stacked fishing string. Yeah, it's useless. But for this, because it's resin, you got to get it clean before you can do anything to it. And I think Danny recommended I just use alcohol, right, Danny? Just clean it good with alcohol.
Yeah.
To get any stickiness off or anything else that's in there, you got to get it clean. So that's your first step. I would say alcohol and some, soap and water, and just get it as squeaky clean as humanly possible. And from there, it depends on the print. Like this print, I'm not going to do much to it. I might take a little 400 grit sandpaper and smooth it down a little bit before I put some primer on it. But that's it. It's going to get a nice thin coat of primer, and then it starts sanding it and get it ready. I'm going to make a mold, but probably you could paint it after that if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But
You
since
can make it even smoother if you were to paint some more resin on it and then cure it again, wash it with alcohol, and it would be mirror finish almost.
right. So
Which
now
you
that's
don't
something
want that when you're going to paint, but
right. Well, actually, you do. I mean, really, if you compare it to a white kit, this is a Pioneer Legend car white kit. They are, they're shiny like a model kit. It's no different. They're nice and shiny. You need to do something to it to get everything to stick to it. First things first is get it clean.
yeah.
So Danny, we have a couple questions again. So Gene asked, what do you know about the different resin types?
So I use an eco resin, which has a lot less smell than other resins. It still has a little bit of a smell, but it's not so bad. Then you have water washable, curable resins, which are I haven't messed with them yet, but I hear they're pretty good. And then you've got ABS like resins, which I thought about experimenting with some of these bodies because I dropped one the other day on my tile floor and completely shattered it.
Yeah.
So, but there's lots of different resins out there. I'm really only familiar with the eco stuff right now, which has good detail. It's really not that hard to print with. There are resins out there that are easier to print with, and ones that are a lot harder to print with. And so, with a resin printer, it's all about UV. So you have to go in and change how long the screen, because it's an LCD screen, how long that screen stays lit. I know the mono resin printers, it's a lot less time that it has to stay on. But the good thing is about, say, I printed a bunch of these parts. So I could fill up that whole thing on my screen. And if I printed one part on here, it may take 3 hours. But if I added a full bed of parts, it would still only take 3
3
hours.
hours, yeah, because done by layer.
Yep, done by layer. Now, some of the other printers, they don't exactly work like that. So they may take longer. But the one that I have an original Anycubic photon, and that's how it works.
So DeLeon asks, Bamboo Labs X1 carbon printer, any good for printing? I don't know all the different brands and types, so.
So I'm pretty sure that one is expensive, if I remember correctly. I'm not quite sure. I kind of stick with the budget stuff because like I said, I'm not a professional yet. If I was doing this and maybe had my own designs and selling them, then I would want, maybe $1,000 printer. But right now, I mean, my Anycubic Cobra, I bought open box on eBay for shipped $150. And I think they're a little over 200 new. So
that any Cobra is a filament printer, though, right?
yeah.
FDM.
So and then the original photon, I think you can get for around 200, 250 as well.
Yeah, they've dropped a lot in price. The resin printers have come down quite a bit. Like I think on Amazon you can get a full kit with the printer, the curing station, and the wash station. I think for like $600 altogether.
Yeah,
if I'm mistaken. Yeah.
I know Creality makes a good resin printer. They have their Harlot, and they have like a pro version of that as well.
Yeah. So John Albright asks, does anyone do color sanding on their plastic bodies before the final prime? So here's something about painting. I've never done color sanding, so I wouldn't know what to say here. Anyone of you have done color sanding?
Yeah, something is like 1,000 or 1,200. That's actually really good on the raw plastic because it doesn't make it fuzz up, for lack of a better terminology. But yeah, you don't really have to get that carried away. I just use a Scotch-Brite pad. It's because it's spongy and springy. It gets into all the little nooks and crannies much better. And you don't have nearly as much problem later on when you're trying to paint in two colors possibly and it pulls the paint off. But yeah, you do have to do some kind of mechanical abrasion to the plastic, but you don't want to get carried away. So, yeah, color sanding, which that's an old term. I don't know if anybody even uses that anymore in the painting industry, but that's what we used to do after the car's completely done, painted. You color
Yep.
sand it with fine grit of sandpaper, usually 1200 to 15 before you polish. So,
Actually, I saw
what
that
people can
being
do here.
done on a YouTube video. I was watching where a guy was spraying a body in gold metallic, and he put three coats down of the gold, so he got a nice coat, and then
Right.
he sanded it, and then he polished it and came out to mirror finish, cause it just looked phenomenal.
But yeah, back in the old days, we used to paint with lacquer, and you paint a coat and paint it 2 coats, let it sit, sand it down as smooth as you can, put 2 more coats, sand it. You know, you already hear these guys talk about their, 20 coats of hand rubbed lacquer. That's where that comes from, because you're color sanding in between each coat. A lot of work, but it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it looks unbelievable. So Bo asked, do you take straight alcohol like isopropanol, or do you mix it with distilled water? I mix isopropanol 60% with distilled water 40%. This cleans vinyl lenses, glasses, and so on.
I just use 50% isopropyl alcohol.
Okay.
And the only reason I say that is because I buy it. It's cheap at the 99-cent store, and it works fine.
Apparently, I need more volume. Let's see.
I have a question for Dave.
Fire.
So, have you done any of the multiple layer masking and all that with painting?
Oh yeah.
So,
Like you mean you want to put it like at 2 different colors on a car?
so for
Two-tone?
Yep. There you go.
well, not necessarily two-tone, but so Raul had sent me a graphic that I really like, and so which is going to have to be done in multiple layers. So it's got color on top of color on top of color,
Right.
and I'll have to send it to you later and show you. But I'd like to do that on this body, but I am just
Sure.
so confused on how to go about that.
There's a trick that I don't think anybody uses. But let's say, like what you want to do, let's say you want to paint the car white and you want a blue and a red graphic that lay on top of each other. What you do, it's really no different than doing a two-tone like this. Paint your car whatever the main color is. Let's say blue. Like in this car, I painted it blue. And then I went back and I masked it off. And I've been using the green frog tape lately. It's really low tack. So you really got to push it down when you're using it to mask with, but it doesn't peel the paint off when it comes off, and it doesn't leave any glue behind either. So I've been using this. But so you get it all masked off for your second color, and before you put the color on, the next color, put a coat of clear on the thing. Because what happens is you put this clear on and it dries. So now you have a barrier between your tape and the color underneath that the color cannot seep through. So you let that clear dry, and then you go over top of it with whatever color, in this case gold. You do that, and then you take your tape off, and you don't have to worry about any bleeds. It doesn't bleed underneath. So on your case, if you're going to do 2 different colors and they're layered on top of each other, paint it the base color, and then let that dry good, and then put your tape down for the second color, paint that, but clear first, and let that clear dry good. I think the main mistake that everybody makes painting cars, is you get in a hurry. Everybody wants to paint their car and be done with it today. Yep, everybody wants to paint their car and be done with it right now. I want to get it on the track. You can't. This car that I showed you guys earlier, it's a single color. I've got 3 days in painting this car, just putting a single color orange on it. So it's you can't be in a hurry if you're going to paint a car. At least if you want it to look nice, you can't be in a hurry. You have to slow down and give each, because the more materials you pile on there, the more chemicals you're putting on there, and those chemicals all need to gas. And if they don't, you start getting blushing and pinholes, and you got all kinds of things happening. So you got to take your time.
Danny's back.
There he is. And Man keeps leaving us.
Danny's hit or miss tonight. Yeah, so I think the one that I gave Danny is a very, very try and bring it up if I can. Let's see if I can.
Do you have a
find it
mask
again.
for it, like a vinyl mask that you're going to use, or is it something you're going to cut out with tape? Or
Well, I have a picture of what Raul sent me, so
Okay.
It's not anything other than just a graphic that he sent me.
okay, gotcha.
So I thought about maybe if I can scale it down. I have a Cricut. Maybe put it on there and cut it out in vinyl, and then lay it across the car, and then paint and peel and paint and peel. I don't know if it'll work that way, but
It could, sure. Yeah, that's a great idea.
A lot of
let
questions.
me bring it up on the screen here.
Why don't we answer the questions that are coming? There's a lot
let's
of
go.
them.
Let's go to the questions first.
When we do that,
Okay,
Get
so
to the
Gene
graphic.
asks, Dave, what brand of spray gun are you using?
Okay, I was going to touch on that tonight. Honestly, guys, I have completely abandoned this thing. Over the years, like I said, I don't know if you guys heard me earlier. I was an automotive and aircraft painter for 35 years. I'm used to painting with a gun. This thing is useless to me, actually. It for what we do, you don't need this. This is for what Raul does, but it's really fine detail on his figures and all that. That is where this thing really shines. But go get yourself one of these little touch-up gun. It's all it is, a touch-up gun. It's for painting door jambs and small parts on cars. That's what it's for. This one is an expensive one, but they make an exact copy of this gun. They have it at Harbor Freight. They're under $40, at least they used to be. And this is what you need with a small air compressor. I just bought a new air compressor myself on Amazon. It's a 1 gallon air compressor. It was $127. I don't think you can buy an airbrush air compressor for that cheap. And it powers this thing. Man, like I said, I sprayed that car. I was like, woohoo, I'm back in the old days, man. I'm painting cars again. And this is the way to go. Because you can dial this thing down to a pinpoint. You can adjust the pressure, the amount of fluid coming out of it to duplicate what you can do with that airbrush. And this is a lot easier to use, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. But I highly recommend this instead of that airbrush. I think that airbrush turns a lot of guys off. You got to push this and pull that, and you got to be careful and don't touch that. It might bend, and you know what I mean. It's like there's this like stigma attached to this thing. So go buy this. It's indestructible. You can throw it on the floor when you're done, and it won't hurt it. And you'll be able to paint cars. This is what I paint my cars with.
Yeah, George actually, George, you've been painting your cars with that new airbrush that you got, or
not all of them. I used it for this one because it's got a 0.3 needle. So on this car, what I did was
now for that,
yeah, because what you're doing is when I did the red, what I did was all this was silver. They call it silver seal. So I use Creatix paint, and I use the water base, and I use a different gun. It's not like Dave's, but it's a Creo's Pro Convoy, but it has the type of fanning that Dave's has, which is it disperses the way the end of the gun looks like. See how that's got that tip?
It's got an air cap.
Yeah, exactly like that. And what that does is that on model kits, the one I use has that tip. It sprays out more material and actually covers better, and it makes painting a little easier. And also, it's a bigger needle, so you don't struggle with like paints that are heavy and when you go through a smaller needle. Now, this right here, I used after I did the silver sealer. It was like a crystal like silver, and like it looks like super silver is what it is. Really good stuff. And I got a dye, which is the candy colored dye, and I used that small gun that Raul was talking about, and I put it at about, I think I had it like 10 to 12 pounds. And I just barely kind of made my lines to kind of separate, the red the white and the blue. And that's when that comes in handy, like Dave says, when you're doing small line area stuff, when you want to
Right.
get small features. And then you use the other gun for whatever your base is. Now, Dave,
Yeah,
I
this
know
is
you
the
use a
gun,
lot of
right?
yeah, that's the one I use for the small. It's good for candies. The only thing that I had a problem with my candy was I should have got the bleed checker, and the bleed checker keeps it from spotting or kind of running. So, and that I was able to hide. Like I said, you do things, you make mistakes, and you just try and hide the best you can. And so the illusion of it doesn't, it looks fine. But going back to like what with colors of cars, like Dave, like when you paint a candy apple red, you use the gold base. That's what I did with this car. This has got a real pop and paint job. I used the gold base on this one, painted the whole body gold, and then I got the red blood dye or red blood candy from Createx, and I just sprayed this lightly. And you have to be patient with this because you slowly build it up because it's super thin. It's just
Yeah,
like
it's
dye.
clear.
If you try and spray it on real hard, it'll run all over. So this is a little bit of a challenge when you do it. But you, like Dave says, you got to have patience, or the paint
Yeah.
job doesn't run as good.
It's
So
your
if you
key.
take
That's
it,
the key
yeah,
skill you need is
yeah,
patience. It's just you
right.
can't run it at all.
And
Um,
every and I make mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes too when I'm doing stuff like that. White on that red, white, and blue car that came out a little bit terrible, and it was because I was rushing it, and plus it was high humidity. Even though I was using acetone to kind of make it dry faster, because you can use acetone because it's like 95% humidity right now. And I was out painting this morning, and I was
yeah.
running it into the house because the house has air conditioning to dry better. But
See,
So
I had the opposite problem the other day. I was painting that car outside. I put a
oh,
couple coats of clear on it, and it started to blush. And I like got it. I needed heat. It was not quite hot enough. So I was doing the opposite. I was like going outside and blasting it in this direct sunlight, trying to get it to lay down, and then bringing it back in to try to keep it from blushing. So yeah, it's just humidity is not your friend when you're painting.
yeah.
All right.
So I wonder
So
George,
what he had
what's your
rattle cans, right? I'm sorry. What
yeah,
did you say?
let's go. There's so many questions, so let's just go. Danny, you wanted to ask something first. What was that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask George what his like ratio is for his Createx. What?
It's all eyeball because it's so small amounts. I just eyeball it. I mean, they tell you get it the consistency of milk.
Skim
That's what I
milk.
hear all the time.
Yeah,
But
So
even
I
are
mean,
you
if
just
you
adding?
even
Are you just adding a thinner to it?
no, what you
yeah,
do is you add the base and then you add what's called a 40/50 gloss. That's the reducer right there. That's what you add afterwards. Some of them are say you could add it from the bottle, but I like to thin it out a little because I want the paint to be able to lay out nice over the brush. Because if it's really thick, then you start getting frustrated. If you have like flakes and metallics and stuff like that, you should run a strainer through it because that'll help break up big pieces if they're larger pieces that can't go through the gun. So I usually will put it through a little filter. Um,
yeah, I see Gary Dunmore on there is asking the same thing. If we do I thin any of the paint? And it's like reduction of your paint. It depends on temperature and humidity. So um, this stuff is totally is thinnable. And George has got me hooked on these Createx paints now. So yeah, up to 10-20% with this. But again, if you need to, some of these paints are kind of thick. These are thin. Um, these ones that come pearlized, like what I've been using here, and like yellow is really thin, anyways, almost all the time. But you just got to be careful. Like George said, consistency of milk. That's kind of like a rule of thumb, but it isn't a hard fast rule. It's how well does it spray? I mean, there's really only one way. If you had what they used to call a Zahn cup, I don't know if anybody even know what that is. You mix your paint, you put it in this cup, and you let it run out with a stopwatch, and it has to be so many seconds. But none of us are going to do that painting model cars. There's just no way. So
you don't go
the
that
best thing you
route.
do is reduce it down what you think looks good, and try it on a scrap piece of
Yeah,
plastic or a piece of paper or something. See how it reacts. If it looks good, go for it. If not, a little more reduction, or if it's too thin, add some more paint. It's all by eye. Like Like if you're using any of these cheapy, um, you know, latex paints, they're great, but they're like mud. They come out of this thing like stucco. So I mean, there's no way you can spray this. You couldn't spray this out of a stucco gun. You gotta reduce it. And I use this to reduce it with too.
Yeah.
You can use water if you're cheap, but it doesn't work as well. Not even close.
No, yeah, you break down the
Yeah,
The
that
paint
breaks down the
is
pigment. It gets
water-based.
all floating
Yeah.
there. And,
the problem with water is you break down the pigment and then you
yeah,
lose coverage.
totally there.
Yeah.
So that's the thing with water-based paints. Everybody has to remember when you use water-based paints, you don't wet sand it.
Oh no, yeah, you just wipe it right back off.
Rinse the paint down is what you do. And believe it or not, I did that the first time. I was like, what the hell? And then I'm like, oh, it's water-based. Oh, duh. You know, you make
Right.
those mistakes. You realize you dry sand it. There is a page over on Createx that describes how to use the paint. So if you guys want to use Createx or any other brand of paint, you go to their website and they'll have a tech sheet, and they'll tell you substrate, meaning what material you're painting, cloth,
Right.
stick, metal, whatever, and they'll tell you what to use and how to use it and the procedure. And I know John came up with asked another question is he says force drying it. Now the problem with doing force dry with Createx paints, they don't recommend it. And then if you have a resin body and you force dry it, you're going to distort your resin body. Ask me, I've done that.
Glad Gander is saying that he's never going to be at our level, George. That he's rattle cans for him, and
you know what?
That's not true. And you can. I say I got my props ready tonight. I prime everything with this stuff right here.
That is excellent primer right there. Use that.
This is a lacquer primer, so it will dry quickly, and you can sand it, wet sand it, and that's your best bet. And for me, clearing these things, this is what I use to clear with. This lacquer, I use lacquer. Enamel takes too long to dry. It's got too many problems. It wants to attack the decals. It wants to attack everything. Lacquer, and you get a better finish. And if you're really anal about how your cars look, once this stuff is dry, you can color sand it and polish it if you really want to. And that looks fantastic. But you don't need, like I said, this car, I don't know if it'll even reproduce on here. It's shiny. There's 5 coats of clear on there, and that's that.
Getting back to what Gladstone was saying though, Jake, because he said right there, so you're only at a certain level right now, Gladstone. Because look, rattle can, okay?
Right.
This is a rattle can right here. There's nothing wrong with rattle can. This is 2X.
Works great.
Looks fantastic. But when you want to go with like your own custom color, or want to put flake, or you want to put they have another paint that Createx had I was going to tell you about, Dave, called iridescent. Iridescent is a paint that changes, it shifts when you go through corners and stuff of vehicles, like fenders. So you want to branch out. It's just like the guys who started out with magnet racing. That's where you're at with painting. You're starting out rattle cans. Nothing wrong with it. But as you get better and start experimenting and reading up more, you're going to get to that level in no time. Trust me. I'm no pro.
Some parts stores, I don't remember if it was O'Reilly or somewhere, they'll actually mix whatever color you want and they'll put it in an aerosol can for you.
Some places will still do that, but like in California, they won't do that here anymore because AQMD, you can't fart in California anymore because you get a ticket. So they're not going to put any paint cans for anybody. So, but the auto parts stores still sell Duplicolor, which is a spray can that is the factory code. So like if you know what color you want to paint it, like say you've got a 93 Chevy, whatever, that you like that color on it, you can find that color like AutoZone. I don't know if you guys have those out there. Any of the auto parts stores that sell paint spray cans usually have Duplicolor, and if you look at them, that's what they are. Those are fairly newer cars, the factory colors. So that works too. There's a lot of metallics in there. That's a good option, and those are lacquer, which is good.
Yeah, I still use Tamiya rattle cans.
Tamiya rattle cans are great, Raul.
Really
those are
good,
fantastic.
That right there is depending what it is a solvent-based paint. But you got to remember, you have solvent-based paint and you have water-based paint. They're two different things. And you got to remember one thing: when you put decals on, this is what I do, and Dave's done it too. these decals, if I did this to one car that I had, I put decals on and I used solvent paint clear right away. And what happened was it shriveled up the decals. And what it's doing, it's actually heating them up and kind of burning them and then making them crinkly. What you
Yep.
do is when you're doing this, and I did it to this car right here today. What I did with this car, like I did the red one, was I put my decals on. What I did was I painted it, right? And then I added an acrylic clear. If you try and put a decal on a car that doesn't have an acrylic clear on after you put the base paint, it's gonna run and you're gonna have a big runny mess because you're using a water slide decal on water-based paint and it's gonna
Yeah, I'll
destroy
take
it.
it right off.
So what you do is that, like what Dave said, when you paint between layers, it doesn't bleed. You paint the whole thing in acrylic clear, let it sit, 15, 20 minutes. I wouldn't say that. Let it sit for about 2 hours just to be safe.
Yeah.
Whatever they recommend to dry. Put your water slides on, and then you clear it with acrylic again because you're going to protect the decals. And then that's when you use your solvent base, uh, you know, gloss, and then that's where you get that gloss. That's one thing I
Raul likes
learned.
Tamiya. This is the acrylic clear that I use, the Tamiya flat clear, and to put in between coats like you're talking about, George.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to thin this or anything. It's ready to spray. It goes right on and boom.
Now with the duplicolor stuff, I don't know if you guys noticed, but that's really expensive. It's really
Yeah.
gone up. So I mean, you guys could do rattle can and go and do duplicolor, but the thing is that could get really expensive, and it's a large can. And I only reason why I buy the Createx paints is because they come in small bottles, and you're only going to use so much for a car. So that bottle's going to last you a while. The bottle's like depending from $4 to $6, depending on how fancy the paint is, it goes up to $8. Now that
Right.
duplicolor can, how much does that cost? Like
Oh, they're
20.
18 or 19 bucks now.
So you got to look at it on an economical point of view. You could use a water-based paint. You could still get that crystal clear look, but you have to protect it first, and then use a gloss solvent base, and that'll
Right.
be fine. That's what they do with the water-based paint.
Right.
Yeah, so Danny, I was thinking about you when actually when I was just doing one of my RC cars recently. We use a special paint on mask. So you paint on the mask, you have to put like 3 layers on it, and it comes out like it just sticks to the car. And then you can use a razor blade and cut out what you want and peel it off, and then you can spray whatever's underneath. It's like super super thin. It comes off like a wrap off the car, and you spray it, and there's no bleed. It won't bleed. It won't go between layers. It's absolutely fantastic on the new RC stuff, and they sell it in big tubs, so it's very cost effective. And because when you paint an RC car, we paint it on the inside out. We go reverse because you paint inside the Lexan bodies. You don't paint on the surface, but it should work the same way on a stock car. I've not done a stock car body yet, but because I haven't done any custom build yet, but definitely gonna try it. But this paint that I use here, this Tamiya, is actually for the windscreens because I like tinted windscreens, and this is a smoke finish, so it will smoke up the windscreens instead of like so they become smoky, which is what I do to all my RC cars. So, yeah.
If we missed any questions, you should put a Q in front of it. Sorry, guys. We got on to one subject. We'll go on another way. Take a while. One question.
I see John Albright's asking about, do I have a dedicated gun or brush for my clear?
The one you showed.
You know what? When I was painting real cars, I had a dedicated gun for every single thing, whether it was metallics, pearls, solid colors, clear coats, primers. I had a gun for each thing. For this, I don't. I just use the same gun. You could, I suppose, as cheap as these guns are, you could probably buy one if you wanted to just put clear through it and nothing else. And I understand why you're saying that, because you never really get all the metallic out of your paint gun, no matter how clean you think you have it. There's still some metallic floating around in there. So you go and paint a black car and you clear coat it, and there all of a sudden there's a couple of flakes of metallic floating around in the black car. Right. So I totally understand that. But for these model cars, no, I haven't gotten that carried away. Not yet. Anyways.
Gladstone has a good point here. The Tamiya paint says for plastic. What kind
This
of
one
paint?
says polycarbonate.
Okay, yeah. There's two different types. There's the ones where you paint the Lexan bodies from
Yeah,
underneath, and then there's one for hard plastic. So you're correct. So I've done that mistake too. Got the
yeah.
wrong paint and realized it was wrong because it didn't work. So you'll usually find out
Well,
that way.
this is because this is flexible, right? Because
Yes,
when you hit a Lexan
flexible
bodies valve,
plastic.
the paint has to flex. Yeah, so that's why we use polycarbonate paint because it's
Like
got
the
a
old
flex.
GTO when they're hitting the Endura bumper.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, RC cars take a beating, so the paint needs to not chip.
If you missed any questions, please ask. Again, put a Q in front of it. Sometimes you miss it.
Yeah.
Because one question could take a while.
Yeah, so while we're
You
waiting
guys-
on some questions now, let's take a look at that that graphic that Danny wanted to put on his car. Let me make. Just bear with me as I make a new scene here, and we'll get it going.
I don't know what's up with my internet today.
Do you have Spectrum?
No,
Okay.
no. I've got 1 gig internet, but today it is acting up.
Probably the heat. Who knows? Weather.
Sorry guys, I'm just rearranging stuff here. Wasn't planning to do this, but here we go. This is for Danny. We got the experts, might as well have a look at it, right? Sorry, Dave, moving around.
That's okay. You could just get rid of me. Nobody wants to look at my ugly face anyway.
Oh, man, you're this. Yeah, no.
Actually, real quick, if anybody on
Sexy.
YouTube, there's a guy named Barbatos Rex. He's
Yeah,
got his
I
YouTube
watch
channel.
him.
That guy, if you want to know any paint that he's tested, that guy has tested every paint ever made, and I mean everything. So that's how I found out about the dehydrator was through him. But look at his channel. He's tested everything, and he's got thousands of videos of it. So if you guys want to look at a brand, you could go to that channel, and I'll put
He
a
even
link.
has his own.
Real good guy.
Yeah, give me
Yeah,
one
he's got
second,
his-
guys. I'm gonna bring this up.
Got his own paint too. I haven't tried his stuff yet.
He does the Gundam figures. That's what he does a lot of.
Talk about weathering, guys. If you guys actually weather, I know Dave, you do a lot of the weathering stuff.
I don't weather anything.
No,
That was
that
far.
was
don't know.
that was.
Smart ass.
Hey, you almost. I was like, how the hell you do that?
That's how.
Dave is the
jobs
king
are
of the jalopy and weathering. He knows how to weather. If you want to know how to weather, yeah.
So you guys are taking painting tips from the wrong guy. This isn't. This is just my normal good paint jobs right here.
There's a question coming up here while we're waiting for that. What's the question here to me? George, question: do you have a YouTube using rattle cans? Not really. I mean, I have videos where I don't show myself. I don't remember having anything spraying. Really, there's no really secret to it. All you make sure that the body is clean. You spray from a nice distance, and you do it in even coats, and follow the can instructions on the recoat time and the drying time. There's really nothing to it.
I'm just rasterizing this file. Give me a second, guys, and then
Boom,
we'll
here.
go through it.
Moon's joining us. He's laughing when he heard weathering. Boone! Patina Dave, that's right. Dave is the king of patina. He knows how to do that.
I do like my rust. There's no question.
So
I'll
yeah,
have to
talk
get
about
with you
that.
about
Like,
that too,
talk
then.
about your process to make rust. Like, I have a very unique process when it comes to terrain painting for rust and grime and streaks and all that. But I
Right.
really wanted to understand your process. So that's something that I'm very interested in. I'm really interested in weathering right now. So another really cool thing that I learned today was how to make weld lines on body panels. So using I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but when you print garments, there's something called puff paint. It comes in little tubes, and you can put that on a garment, and you can write letters and words with
Right.
it, and it'll puff up. So what they've been doing recently, I've been watching this on scratch build terrain models, is to give that weathered effect, like where it's like a welded container. Was they'll draw the line in marker and then use puff paint on top of it, let it dry down, and then dab it on, and then it creates. And then when they spray it, it looks like it's all these well lines. And then when you rust it and patina it and all that, it looks really awesome. It's something that I really want to try and do as well.
That does sound pretty cool. That's a pretty neat idea. I've
Yeah.
I've used like I did. Well, I don't have one on my 37 Ford that I did the firewall that goes in the car. It has these convolutions in it. They look like a W that goes across it. They were strengthening lines in the metal, and of course they weren't there. So what I used was, well, I can't get it now. One of those UV glue pens.
Yeah.
Where you just squeeze it and it comes out like a drop, and I just pulled that along and it worked perfectly, and then painted over that and it looked right. So probably the same similar thing to that puffy paint.
Yeah, so this was pretty cool because the puff paint actually looks like little weld dots. Like
Right.
because the way it comes out, it looks like it's actually weld. Like you can see the little like beads of weld as you
Right.
rough welding. So it looked actually fantastic. It was pretty awesome. Let's see. I think I got this ready.
When I weather a car, it's pretty simple. I try to do it. I try to look kind of how like the factory would do it. All right. So there's primer on the car first, right? It's bare metal, and there's primer. So what color primer did the factory use? I don't know. Especially on an old Ford like this, I'm sure it probably wasn't red oxide, but I usually start with red oxide primer on everything, and I spray it with red oxide primer, let that dry, and then start building up my colors, and then I just go back and I sand it off, and I just sand until it looks like weathering. I don't know. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but and like George says, the water-based paint will wipe right off with water. So I use a little water on a Q-tip, and it'll take some of the paint off, makes it real easy. Maybe I should just do a video on how I weather. It'd probably be easier.
That'd be a good one to do.
Yeah, so I don't know if you ever used something called streaking grime.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I used to buy a lot of stuff from this place called MIG.
AK. It's from AK. AK
Yes.
is known for all their weathering.
Right.
I forget. So I got the whole set from AK. So you can do like rust effects, grime effects, grim dark effects. It's really cool because all you do is you do a satin clear on the model that you want to start applying grime to, and then you just take this grime and you mix it with a little bit of thinner. It's done with a thinner. You mix a wash and you paint the whole thing that you want to grime up with the wash, and then you take a paper towel and just wipe it off. And then what will happen? It will just stick into all the recesses and pools, and then you can use a paintbrush and just draw it down. It looks like streaks where there'll be like oil drips or rust drips or pattern drips depending on what you're using. But yeah, AK does a lot of effects.
I like the dry pigments that they have.
Oh yeah,
you
awesome.
can mix them with a little thinner and drop that stuff in. Man, it looks like real rust, pouring. Like you say like on a ship model that's been out in the ocean for 100 years or something. There's going to be rust dripping everywhere, and those dry pigments worked really well for stuff like that. I should do a video. I'll put a video together and show how I do my rusty junk.
Yeah. So on screen we have the graphic that Danny was talking about, right?
That's cool.
It's very vibrant, obviously. Now there's a lot of like dithering here. This is all done obviously with a vinyl wrap. This is supposed to be a vinyl wrap for a car, right? So I don't know. I think your base color is yellow here on this car. You can tell it's predominantly yellow, and then a lot of black streaks. So you can just mask your yellow and black, I think. And then the rest of it is just airbrushing, to be fair. You can mask out areas and then use 2 color tones and airbrush in and create these like gradient effects. That's the way I look at it.
You can use green pinstriping if they make anything like that, because that would be
the dithering? This is
front,
dithering.
On the front kind of looks like pinstriping.
It's
Yeah,
just
so
a
this,
graduated line. You're gonna.
yeah.
It's a gradient, so you would use different. You probably have to cut all that. You just little
Cut it and
slices
lay it
out of it.
down.
But you're right. I'd say yellow is the base color, and then I would probably go.
That's a complicated paint job.
Yeah,
Yeah, see,
it
that's
is.
why for me, my
But
first time doing something like that,
Yeah, I
it's
couldn't even
hard to
get them
wrap my mind.
away, but
I do
that's
the
it.
yellow and then the black lines first, and then once you got that, I think what you could do is then you can go in and those areas that you want to put a little bit of blue and stuff, you can actually mask back off your black and then just start adding a little bit of gradient in.
yeah,
And that would really make this effect in this car. The main effect here is these little like gradient lines that come into the yellow, right? Because everything else is covered with black.
How's it look like from the top though? Is it showing the side, the top? That's the
I don't have a top. This is just like a concept that I had put together for a race car.
looks like Danny just wants to jump deep into the pool right away, first thing.
Yeah, and that's me. That's kind of like what I do, and this is the same car that is.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
when Danny did the print of this, I sent him this graphic because we had done.
What were you
because
thinking?
I print we print and lay out graphics on a lot of race cars because I have my facility for doing that. So this was a graphic that we recently did on a race car, and so I just sent it to Danny as and then Danny's like, how do I paint that? I was like, I don't know how you're gonna paint that, but just a
Can't you do a wrap for 132nd car then?
You know what? I've been contemplating it because I can print my own stickers, right? I could actually do. The main problem is scaling it down and getting the cut lines proper on the 132nd. And the problem is there's not enough like peel and stretch, right? Like that's the whole thing about a wrap is like when you wrap, you use a heat gun and stretch it out and take out the bubbles. Be interesting though. I'm interested in doing a car with a lot of decals on it. Using the sticker machine, so we'll see.
Questions
Um,
All right,
Jeff
let's
G
see.
made a good point here in the comments in the chat. Jeff G says lightest color to darkest. He's absolutely right. If you do a paint job, you always start with the lightest color first and work to the darkest. And when we were doing it, when I did airplanes, I painted quite a few World War II planes, putting the original paint schemes back on them. And you always do the light color first and then blend in the dark because light overspray shows up better on dark than dark overspray shows up on light. I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's the idea anyways. But yeah, lightest to darkest. So on this car, yellow, and then I would do the green and the pink, and then the black would be the last thing I would put on that car.
Yeah. Well, the whole reason why I'm saying to put your yellow and black because those are your primary paints. Everything else is just an embellishment, right? Like those are just embellished colors. Like you're not gonna get. I don't think anyone's gonna go and get this sort of detail in a paint job. This is a wrap, right?
Especially on a 132 scale car.
Yeah. So as like what I would do is like if you only look at the yellow and black, that will give you your whole pattern. And then you can say, okay, you can mask off this area here, this purple and blue, and you can just do a gradient of purple and blue. But you'll have to have very good control on your airbrush, right? This is where like the thin 0.3 millimeter nozzle airbrush is going to come into play, right? Because you can just filter in the purple and then filter in the blue on top.
Right.
Yeah, so this is where down the skill with the airbrush will come into play. How thin a line can you get? Like I was watching some airbrush tips on how to make the thinnest line with an airbrush. It's almost just the width of a hair, but it's consistent. How to make consistent thin lines with an airbrush. These are things that you just have to pick up with skill on the airbrush, and you need a dual action airbrush for this. You will need a dual action where you have complete control on the amount of paint coming out to air here. But it could be done. It won't be the same as this, Danny, for sure, but it'll be close. and you could get a really
Yeah.
cool paint job out of it.
You can always make your own up too. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly like that. You just get an
Yeah.
imagination something close to that and put something together yourself. That's what I would do.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
anyway, I mean, like, I didn't expect you to want to paint it. I just gave you a
Right.
shot of something that I'd already done. So,
Like I said, he just wants to jump right into the deep end of the pool. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to learn all this other stuff. I want to do that.
yeah.
This one's
Yeah.
easy, just black.
Yeah.
So,
black. There you
Boone
go.
says you can use a Trisket for airbrushing finer details. What's a Trisket? have no
I think
idea
he
what-
means frisket. Not Trisket, a frisket, I'm sure is what he
Frisket.
means. Frisket paper.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that is either.
Get a cookie or the cracker. But
It's basically paper that you make a stencil out of and lay it on whatever you're doing and spray against it.
Oh yeah. Well, we make a lot of card stencils. So you'd lay the card down and spray against the edge, so you get that dust right onto the. So you don't spray exactly on the model, you just dust on the edge of the card.
Just on
That
the
was-
for us,
yeah.
right?
It'll give you a nice gradient onto the surface that you want to go against. It gives you these nice, like, clean lines when you do that.
Right.
I still need to get this one ready for paint.
That's a really nice looking car.
Are you going to do that like a
Nice.
BRE car, or are you going to go with your own scheme?
My own thing. I thought about doing maybe a solid color, but I do want to do. I want to figure out how you do your weathering, because I thought about doing some weathering on the hood. Maybe the trunk. Just do the hood and the trunk. I don't know yet, but make it kind of look like it's a race car, and they just threw a rusty old hood on it or whatever, you know.
Right.
So,
Weathering starts with an actual paint job. At least for me, it does. Like if you go back and look on my Facebook page of the little 32 that I did, if you look at the first pictures that I posted of this car, it's painted, and it's painted like a gold metallic, and there's still remnants of it on here, but I started out with an actual paint job and then weathered it back to look like it's been sitting in a field for 30 years. So if you want to weather something on the car, or if you're trying to maybe show like they used some old hood off of another car in the junkyard to put on their car, so it's going to look different, then yeah, you want to do that separately. But if you're going to weather the car, you want to get it looking at least good first.
Yeah.
You see, it's harder to do a weather paint job than it is to do a nice shiny good one. It's way harder.
yeah, Slugger Daddy, I'm pretty sure that George and Dave have lots of bodies to paint. They do run their own live stream every other week, and I'm pretty sure they'll be going into body painting and everything else on that live stream. So,
with
this
you guys
is
have a body ready to paint.
Yeah.
Basically, the paint is just priming it. Clean the body real good and use that 2-in-1 primer. Dave, show them that can again. That's the only stuff you should use on anything, in my opinion. For resin, for hard plastic, that's the best stuff to use.
yeah.
That's what I would do. It's really, I could show the video would be 5 minutes. Wash your car and then
Yeah.
ready to
it's-
paint, and then you can sand it a little if you want to.
And it's available everywhere. Lowe's has it, Home Depot, your local Ace Hardware. They all have that Rust-Oleum 2-in-1. It's available everywhere.
So let's talk
And it's
about
not-
sanding for 1 second, guys. Like, what's the grit that you guys use for your sanding on in 1/32?
And on the
Well,
material.
Yeah, again, I was just going to say that too. It just
On
depends
the
on
plastic,
what
on like
you're
let's say
doing.
the white kit, like you got the Legends white kit there. What
Yeah.
would you use for sanding on that one?
I wouldn't. I would just use a green Scotch Brite pad because they're fine. It's the fine Scotch Brite, and a little. That's it. Just a little. I put some dishwashing soap on the car, and run it under the water with this green Scotch Brite pad, and that's it. And then I would prime it.
That's because the body's perfectly smooth to begin with. Why would you want to put lines in there and screw it up? Remember
Right.
that.
That's it. So if you go and sand on it, you're probably going to have a problem.
Okay.
Hope my doesn't die. I just went into low power mode.
No worries.
If I disappear, that's why my phone's about ready to die.
Plug it in.
Plug it in, Dave.
I know, really. Donovan. to get my son out here, put him to work.
Thank you, Stock Car Daddy. He commented on the red, white, blue car.
Hey George, I got a question for you.
Can you go get my charger?
When you're using the airbrush that we had just got with the the trigger, what PSI are you running that at?
That depends on the paint you're shooting.
Depends on the paint.
So I'm using the Vallejo, the Vallejo Air, but at 30 PSI, it's not giving me really a fan. I even tried turning it down, tried turning it up. It's not really giving me a fan. It's more of a pen. Like if you were doing like a fine line, it kind of is like what it comes out at, and it should because that's a point.
Yeah, that's probably the way it's thinned out, and also the size of the needle. Probably that needle is like.
If you're running a 0.5, you should get a good spray out of it.
Yeah. No, he's using the one that we got. That's a 0.3. That's good for fine stuff and real light stuff. But that's the one thing I noticed when I was using it too. Is you got to thin the paint out pretty good. It's too thick. It's not going to atomize out of it. Okay. That's why I like the 0.5 for like depending. That like to get this effect. Like I said, that's why I use that one because I wanted a light amount to be to leave like a like a fade.
So I thought I thought it being a 0.5 meant that it had a bigger fan.
Yeah, it's the bigger needle. It's allowing that more paint comes out.
Yeah, so that's the one I'm using.
You're using a 0.5 and you're still getting that problem?
Yeah, that's why I was asking.
It's probably the thickness of your paint.
The paint, the way you're mixing it, it's maybe not thin enough.
Okay.
It's thick, and then if you're in warm weather, you'll really.
We can jump on a call later. Danny can go through the mix and see. Because I use Vallejo all the time.
It's like Dave and I said, it's like an eyeball thing, man. It's kind of you have to kind of judge it, and what you do is you get a piece of cardboard, and that's when you start just experimenting on the cardboard before you paint your subject or your object.
I usually use my hand.
Yeah, you can do that too. But a piece of cardboard is better because you're gonna see if it's gonna splotch or if it's gonna be nice and smooth or it's gonna pan out nice. That's really what determines that. So if you don't do that and just use your hand, has texture. You're not really gonna see it on a piece of cardboard, like you would on a piece of cardboard.
True.
Well, the only time I use my hand is if I want to see how thin a paint is over another paint. So I'll spray it on my hand and then spray the paint on top and see how much comes through. So I use that when I'm just like trying to like get a contrast between two paints or whatever. Or I'm trying to cover paint but not completely cover it. But yeah, there's so many ways. I mean, I just test on pieces of paper. I try and write my name with the airbrush. Depending on how thin I want it, like how fine I want it. I just try and write my name with it. And if it's writing and I can control the splatter because that's what you're controlling, then I have control on it. But paint, it gets it can get very tricky with acrylic paint because if it dries up or it clogs up your brush a bit, you're gonna have a few issues.
I usually get a little Q-tip, wet it, and then wet the front of the needle if it's warm.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys like. I always have this thing around. I don't know why this thing's not focusing. But this is Mr. Tool Cleaner, and I always have it around because this will break down acrylic paint into little particles and push it out. So if your airbrush jams up, normally I dump the airbrush. I'll put this in there. I'll backwash a little bit, and then I'll dump it out, and then I'll spray like a Windex or water through, and it will spit out whatever's stuck inside. Because this breaks down all acrylic to little particles, and it can spray it out.
So Chris is asking, is an airbrush we already we went over this a little bit. No, it's just the level of what you want to do. The rattle can's fine if you're comfortable with rattle. You do whatever floats your boat, guys. If you want to sit with rattle cans, go for it. And I rattle cans just as good as an airbrush, as long as you know how to spray it on. That's the whole trick. But like I said before, it's like when you're starting out, you start out with rattle cans because that's the thing you're most easy and familiar with because you're comfortable with it. And as you get more experience, that's when you start jumping into airbrushes and stuff like that because that's how I was.
Yeah, Jeff G has a little tip here. It's like when you thin your paint, lifts a stir, and if it drips off under 4 seconds, that's the correct mix. For
That's
me,
good.
it's like I use a little metal lid, and I mix my paint in there, and I drag it up on the side, and if it drips down, but leaves like a streak, like a covered streak on the surface of it, that I know is ready to spray. It's just a feel. I think over time you'll get a feel for it. It's just you'll know when the paint's ready once
Yeah.
and every airbrush is a little bit different. It's so weird. Like I have two water eclipses. One doesn't take the same paint as the other. But just maybe the cradle where the needle goes through is just a little bit, dinged up or whatever. It's just different. So
No
every
problem,
airbrush
Chris.
has its own thing, right? Yeah.
No problem, Chris. Chris is speaking right now. No problem, man. It was just let you know. Yeah, you're gonna make your mistake. You'll make it, and you'll learn from it. It's just part of the process. So if you screw up, you screw up, and you know what not to do next time.
I see Dusty sitting there that he says he used Tester's rattle cans on one of his cars and it was terrible. And yeah, the Tester's is probably enamel. And like I said earlier, you want to stay away from enamel. I mean, unless you're building, model airplanes or something. But enamel, I would stay away from it. It just has too many problems. It takes too long to dry. Even when you think it's dry, ask Harry, George, how many people have painted a car for their proxy and put it in a box and sent it to him, and when it gets there, the bubble wrap is stuck to the car because that enamel isn't dry yet. It's just,
There is a workaround that, and that's the dehydrator, but that depends. What I use my motors with is I paint it. I don't know if I told you this day. That's why I use enamel paint for my motors, and then I take it to the dehydrator and let it sit there for 2 hours at 122 degrees.
right.
And then after 2 hours, it's hard as nails. It's fine. But that's if you don't have that's if you have a dehydrator. If you don't have a dehydrator, it's exactly what Dave says. It takes a long time for the air to dry it, and then when you handle it, you put a thumbprint on it, and then you'll screw it all up.
And
So
they make catalysts for enamel, but I doubt if they make one for. Well, you know what? I don't even know if I should show you guys this or not. Back in the day, I used to pinstripe and all that too. So I use a lot of one shot, which is enamel, but this is hardener for enamel. So you put a little bit of this in your Tester's enamel paint, and that stuff will dry. It will harden up hard as a rock. And so, but this is really expensive too. So, but all these, I use some of this, one shot. It's sign painters and pinstripers enamel, and I use it for certain things, but not very much, hardly anything.
So I'm noticing in the chat here, lots of people have airbrushes, but they're all new in box. And I had the same problem. Like when I bought my airbrush, I was intimidated by it, so I didn't open it up for a long time. And then one day, one of my friends came over, and he's a really good painter, and he said, the first thing I want you to do is take apart your airbrush and put it back together again. He's like, that's how you're gonna get over your fear. Just take it apart, learn every piece, see that it's not complicated as you think, and put it back together again, and then start spraying.
That is something you will have to do when you're done cleaning.
Done
painting. It's cleaning. That's the part where
I think that's the most intimidating part. It's like, I don't want to block up my airbrush. I don't want to mess up my needle. And I think that's the fear of it. But
you know what are two good airbrushes? The one Dave has, and I use one. It's called the Pro Convoy. It's a 0.5. I'll put a link for it. It's under $100 from Amazon. That paintbrush, and then the one that for small stuff that you guys got, that's a good one too. For like small things, real small painting, and you can paint a car with it too. You just have to, thin your paint right for it. But that Pro Convoy one, that's a 0.5. That thing really sprays nicely. It fans out nicely. It's got that fan tail instead of the conical circular one, and that's a really good airbrush. I really have had a lot of good luck by painting a lot of cars with it. I mean, I'm happy with it. If you guys want to start airbrushing, you could go that route or what Dave has. I would recommend Dave's first because it's cheaper than the one I'm talking about. And this way, if, like he says, if you drop it on the ground or something happens, it's not going to kill it. And plus, it seems like a real easy one to use because it's got the little bottle in it. And that one's a bottom, or is that not a? That's not a gravity fed, or is it siphon, Dave? I can't
You
remember. It's
talking
a
about
gravity.
this?
Yeah, that's no, the other one. The other one you
My
talked
spray gun?
about, right? Yeah. Okay, that's
Well,
not a
Oh,
yeah,
that's
gravity.
siphon.
technically it's side.
Yeah,
It's siphon.
yeah.
Well, I have it set up siphon. The cup that comes with this gun actually
Okay.
faces up, and it's gravity fed like this. But where's that? There. See, it goes gravity fed that way. But
I would start out
I
with
took the
that one.
big cup off and put this adapter on there so I could use the jar for my airbrush.
I would start out with that one if you see that one. That's from Harbor Freight, right?
Well, this one's not, but they have the clone of this at Harbor
That's an
Freight. Yeah,
Iwata. He's
yeah, this is
holding
an
an
Iwata.
Iwata. He's not holding
Yeah,
I can tell that's an expensive one. Not water.
That's a
yeah,
two
that's
hundred
Only
and
water unless you want to empty your bank account.
yeah,
yeah.
that's an expensive one. But you don't have to buy this one. The one that they have the Harbor Freight model for $30 works just as good.
You're spraying a slot car. You're not spraying an entire vehicle.
Right? Yeah. If you're gonna go, for painting real cars, fine. But we're not. So
Yeah,
So
so
talking about
somebody asks,
airbrushes,
sorry, go
we
ahead.
haven't talking about airbrushes that haven't been used. I bought this Badger off of eBay, and it's been in the box. I just used the Amazon one and the one that I got from Harbor Freight. I just used those. I haven't touched this one yet.
It looked like a mini submarine.
I was thinking the
Yeah,
same thing, George.
it's
It
got
looks
a
like a
The Hunt for
submarine.
Red October. It just looks like a sub because
Yeah.
that's the
yeah.
cap on it.
But this one's siphon feed.
And if you guys like rattle cans, stick with rattle cans. I would stick with
Yeah,
rattle
nothing
cans.
wrong with rattle cans.
Rattle cans are
So
great.
Vallejo is a really good paint. I use it a lot. I have a lot of it. They have Vallejo Air, which is really good. Like it's ready to go. But even with Vallejo Air, I still do about a 30% reduction with a airbrush thinner on the Vallejo Air to spray through my airbrush. But then I use very thin. I'm using a 0.3 needle most of the time, so yeah. But Vallejo, yeah. But I use Vallejo. If you really want like the color shift paints, I use Green Stuff World's color shifts. That one you need to do gloss black base coat, and then you spray your the color shifts on top, and that's really cool. Use the
Lightly.
color shifts.
You gotta do it lightly. You can't
Yeah.
do it heavy or you'll screw it up.
No, you do it in light passes. So it's a pass and then a pass. Just like any, I think it's spray painting in general. It's not heavy coats. It's always light coats, bit at a time, bit at a time, bit at a time. You do multiple passes, you get a nicer eggshell kind of finish. But if you try and do it like in one pass, you just end up having streaks and runs, and yeah, it could get really messy. So
Remember, Dave, when the color first came out, it was on that Mustang, 93,
Yes.
94. And
Yeah.
they did not want anybody to have that paint. It was if you had to get that car repainted, you had to go to
Yep.
the dealer. It was a special order paint. They were like really like secretive about that stuff.
I'll tell you a quick story about that. I used to work in Palm Springs at a high-end body shop, and when that car first came out, we got one in that was it had been in an accident, and the front bumper and the right front fender were damaged on it. So we turned it into the insurance. They came out, they looked at it, the whole 9 yards. When I went to order the paint, of course, I couldn't. We had to call Ford, and Ford had to refer us to Back East Ford, and they literally, I'm not making this up. The guy came out and he looked at the car and he determined how much paint I was going to need. And then he left, and we saw him about a week later. He came back. He flew out here from Back East, wherever, flew out back to Palm Springs, and he brought me that paint in a briefcase that was handcuffed to his arm.
Shit.
Yep. And he stood there while I painted the car, and every drop of paint that was left over, he took every bit of it. We weren't allowed to keep any of it, and he put it back in his briefcase with his little handcuff, and he left. They were that secretive about that paint. It was. I thought I'd never seen anything like this in my life. But yeah, you're right.
well, when
crazy.
I used to do printing, we used to do something called color downs, color drawdowns. So you know how you paint match Pantones or specific colors,
Right.
and
Did that
people
painting.
spend a company will spend thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do ink drawdowns on their colors. So
Wow.
I can totally understand why they would be super protective. Because I know I did a coffee company, and just to do their color drawdown for their packaging, I think we spent over $50,000
Wow.
just
Just
to
so they could choose a
understand that
color.
color. Yeah,
Wow.
because it had to be a specific shade, and we had to do color drawdowns on different. Because it's all print packaging, we had to do on different print packaging finishes to make sure that we got consistency, and everyone had to be signed off. It was great, so I totally
Boone,
understand that.
Boone was
Wow.
saying the reason why it was because they used the paint was used for counterfeiting money. Boone, how would
Probably.
you know?
Dave, talk
Okay.
about atomization of the paints and clear coats for the smoothest finish. Your cars look wonderful. Don't see much orange peel in the finishes.
Oh, thanks, Stock Car Daddy. There's again, there is everything starts with the very first thing that you do. So if you scratch the car all up with some heavy sandpaper and leave it rough looking like that, even though you primer it and you go over it with paint, it's going to be rough. So whatever you start with is what you're going to end up with. And the smoother you get it, the smoother it will be in the very end. So each successive thing that you do has to be smooth. And then you can put the clear coat on it, and it's just as smooth as everything else. And that's why they come out as slick as they do. So you just have to be mindful of that. Don't sand your car with 220 grit sandpaper and expect it to be smooth and shiny, because it's not gonna be. You gotta take, if you're gonna take it down a little. Like I start with 400 usually on the primer, and I usually end up with around 800. 800's good, and I go from there. And that's how you get smooth. Start with smooth, and you'll stay smooth all the way to the top.
So Gary asked me, "Hey, Roll, what about iridescent acrylic paints?" I've never painted
Yeah,
with iridescent paints. I don't think.
Createx has it. I'm gonna try it.
Yeah,
You go to Amazon, it's iridescent, and they tell you what to use for it with the base, and I forget what it was.
that's the
And
paint that lights up when you shine a light on it.
yeah, because
Yeah,
it when
it's
you
got a
get like
flake.
edges, it kind of, I guess it flops, doesn't it, Dave? When you hit the edges, kind of like a flopping effect. The
Yeah, well,
flopping,
you can get a flop effect from any metallic depending on how you put it on with. But the iridescent stuff is usually, it's like a pearl, but what it has is I think they use mica. It's ground mica flakes that that reflect light differently. So um, that's what gives that iridescent, like a rainbow effect, because it's basically little tiny pieces of plastic, for lack of a better word. But you spray it about the same as you spray a pearl. Most people don't realize on a pearl coat, like if you're painting a car pearl, it's got to be something underneath of it, or it's going to absorb whatever's underneath of it. So you want to paint a pearl white car, it's not just pearl white. It's got to be white first, and then pearl on top, and then your clear coat. And it's the same with any of these pearlized paints. You want to put something down behind it. If you just paint over gray primer, it's going to dull out your pearl effect. So you want to paint the car, I would probably paint it white first.
it'll bring it
So
out the more of the color, it'll pop more. And then if
yes,
you want
it'll
it
make the
darker, you
color
put a
pop.
black base.
Right.
Yeah, like yeah, good. Like we use the metallics, so you'll spray a metallic down like a bright silver, and then spray on top of it, and
Right.
just really pop.
And if you really want if you're really trying to get a good effect with your metallic paint, you want to do what you call like a drop coat. You spray really far away from the object, a little bit higher pressure. It's more like just an overspray coat. So what it does is it lays it down there, and it lets all those little metallic particles stand straight up. And you let that dry really good, and then you clear over that, and you'll really see how much more sparkly your metallic paint jobs look if you do that.
So Gene has another question, Dave. How would you do an imitation Landau roof?
Well, let's see. I did.
What are you trying to make Volare?
In fact, George, do you have the modified card that I sent you? Is it there?
Yeah,
Is it
I'll go get it, and I know what you're talking about. Hold on.
Okay. George has a car that I built, that the modified I did a month or so ago. That is how I would do a Landau roof, and I'll wait for George to get here. It's pretty simple, really. It's masking tape. I literally take some of this tape and I lay it on something really smooth. Like I have a piece of aluminum. I lay out the tape. There you go. And I paint the tape black. And I actually used a brush to paint the tape because I wanted that texture. I didn't want it smooth. I wanted it to be textured. So I painted the tape black, and then I laid it, once it's dry, peel the tape up and laid it on the roof of the car and cut it out where I wanted it. And then it's got a coat of clear over it, flat clear, so it will hold it down. But that's what I would do. I don't know what other modeler guys do, but that's how I do it. It's just masking tape, painted masking tape.
I think of the Landau tub, I was thinking of the Volare.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, those
With
there.
the rich Corinthian leather.
Yes, Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah, we can definitely tell Dave has been painting for years. Yes, indeed.
More than I care to remember.
So Slugga Daddy says, I get some orange sometimes. I was wondering if I need to adjust my airbrush pressure.
Like orange peel in the top coat or when you first started?
That probably sounds like when he first started.
Yeah, I mean, if you got orange peel all the way down at the bottom, then like I said a minute ago, you're gonna have orange peel at the top too. So,
yeah.
But if you're getting orange peel when you're painting, it's no different. It's a function of air pressure and how you have the paint, reduced.
And the weather.
And the weather, yeah, the weather has a bit in there too.
Yeah, so I think there was a question earlier. Do you guys wear a mask when you spray paint?
Hell no, I breathe that in all.
I was ignoring that question, Raul.
There you go.
Yeah, yes, I do. I wear a mask. No,
yeah,
for this
I
stuff,
do.
I don't.
I have one.
Yeah, that's
Water
a bit
based
for Raul. Yeah, I don't wear a mask. I don't spray anything that's really. I mean, obviously lacquer is probably not that good for you, but outdoors, the minute you spray it, it's gone. So I don't worry too much about it. But you're right. Like my old video, my safety first video, we probably should be wearing one, but.
Well, acrylics I don't wear. Like if it's just plain acrylic, I don't wear. But when I'm spraying metal, I do because the metal flakes will get like there's some overspray. But I also have an airbrush. Like
there you go.
Yeah, you got a little paint booth to suck the fumes out. So
yeah, so I have the paint booth, but I think when I'm painting terrain, when it's a really big structure and stuff, I'll wear the mask because you're doing a lot
yeah,
of
if it was something big, I would definitely wear a mask. I mean, for these little tiny cars, it takes all of 30 seconds to spray. It'd take me longer to put the mask on than to paint the car. So, but yeah, if I was painting something larger, absolutely. Like I said, I spent my whole life painting. I always wore a mask. That's why I'm still alive.
Yeah. So, wear a mask. We say wear a mask. Whether you do or not, that's okay.
If it makes you feel better, by all means, wear one.
Yeah.
Wear a helmet too.
A helmet.
When you get
forget safety glasses. Don't forget safety glasses now.
Yeah, safety glasses and gloves. Put on gloves. And now see,
gloves is the one I would say. Gloves.
I wear gloves.
Gloves sometimes, but like right now, if I were to show you my fingernails up close, they're orange right now from painting that car.
That was me today with blue dye. I gotta lower my hand. I spilled the bottle.
That's it. Like I said, you can see my thumbnail. It's orange. So I don't even heed my own advice half the time.
Yeah, I always have a box of those acrylic gloves. Yeah.
See, I have to use the latex. I cannot use those. Whatever those other ones are, nitrile.
Oh yeah.
Those things, they give me the heebie-jeebies, man. I don't like them. I gotta have latex.
Yeah.
I start wearing them and then I take them off.
Once I have it on, I just leave it on.
Yeah.
And you're working on equipment that then you take them off because you get annoyed by them sometimes. You're trying to do things,
at work all the time.
Yeah.
Well. It's like lately I've been doing a lot of casting, I've been pouring a lot of resin. So I've been wearing gloves because that stuff is nasty. I hate it. So I wear the gloves when I do that always.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This has been an awesome discussion. I
Yeah,
really
definitely.
enjoyed it. This is one of my. I love talking about paint and stuff. It's always fun, and I don't even paint car models. That's the funny part. But
Well, you're
you
gonna
know,
though.
eventually, yes, eventually, when I get this terrain done, it's a lot of work. But yeah, I mean, this was awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to paint. Like I said, do my first custom build.
Gladstone.
Questions are still coming. Do you clear coat between coats, if only solid color? Not
Clear coat
really.
between coats. I don't kind of understand that question really.
Clear
I
coats you
think
talking about,
I think it's
Gladstone?
like I think you put the solid color, then you clear coat, then put another. No, I wouldn't do that.
No, I wouldn't put clear between coats. Again, it depends on what are we doing. If I'm putting something down and I need to put decals, then yes, I'd put clear. But
Yeah,
why
clear.
I wouldn't be putting decals if I'm going to put more color on it either, though. But
Maybe was he talking about maybe when you were talking about the masking and all that? Because you were talking about clear then.
Oh yeah, that's when
well,
you. But that's layers
yeah,
of colors when you're doing like like
yeah.
a.
It doesn't matter what color or if it's a metallic or a solid color. It doesn't matter if I'm doing a two tone or layering colors on top of each other. I always clear after I mask the second color, clear, and that's just a dam to keep the paint from bleeding underneath the tape. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, like John Albright says, for masking, yes. Even on a solid color, yes, I'd clear between the masking steps.
So what I've always, I guess what I've been doing as far as if I was going to do two different colors and mask, I would paint the same color that I just did against the edge of the mask, and then do the different color so that the new color wouldn't bleed through the edge. Is that the
You
same?
could do that, but you're piling a lot of material up on that car. You know, especially solid colors. You know, the pigments are heavy, and if you're gonna paint a car blue and then mask it off, and then go back and paint blue, and then on top of that blue you're gonna paint white. Holy moly, you're gonna have a tape line so thick. That's why you just a little acrylic clear in between. You won't even notice it. You just spray it on, let it dry, and then continue on.
So that's what Gladstone meant. He just
Yeah.
said thanks. I missed that. It was what
Okay,
you just
cool.
said.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up then.
Well, this has been awesome, guys. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
I enjoyed this
I
very
can't
much.
appreciate. Can't tell you how much I appreciate this. It was really good. Yeah. Every time I finish talking with Dave, and I always want to go paint something. It's so weird. I want to go paint models right now. But yeah, it's awesome.
Cool.
But yeah, thank you so much once again for joining us tonight.
Always.
It's been an
Anytime.
awesome experience. George, thank you for always being here. George has never missed yet.
George is a rock, man. He
George
is
is a rock.
I know. And if on Tuesdays, if Marty's not there, then George is
I
filling in.
know. George.
Well,
George.
that's because the guys will ask. I think it was Gladstone that asked me that. He had messaged me, or actually comment on a video on my videos, and I said, "Hey, can you fill in for Marty tonight?" I'm like, "I guess," but I have to ask Marty because that's his deal. So I texted Marty and I asked him, "Do you mind me doing?" Because the guys are asking. He said, "Yeah, go for it." So that's why I did that, because I don't overstep somebody's channel without the permission.
Right.
Oh man, if I ever miss a Monday, you have full rights to take over. Don't worry. Go nuts.
Don't forget, guys.
I haven't
the
missed a
showdown-
Monday yet though.
The showdown is in 2 weeks, right? So I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff. Meaning, I'm going to be doing a lot of videos, a lot of pictures, a lot of things. Because when I go down, this is why the whole reason why I actually built the track was after I went down there at Labor Day last year. So I'm going to be putting a lot of stuff up, and we're going to see a lot of cool cars, and we want to inspire other people to do it. And like Dave said, there's something in the making right now that we can't mention, but when it comes up, we'll announce it, and it'll make things a lot easier for everyone to get into doing a scratch built chassis, and then the modeling part is all up to you. You guys
Yep.
have to
So
find the body, which there's plenty 132 plastic kits out there, and there's also resin if you go on eBay and stuff like that.
Oh,
It's
just
not
go
like
to Danny.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, you get a 3D printed
Hey,
one.
Danny,
George, are you going to Missouri?
Yes, I am.
So you're gonna come through probably by me.
Does it go through? Where do you live in? Well, I don't want to say it on.
I live in Clarksville.
Talk about it. Huh?
I live in Clarksville,
Oh, okay.
but
All
I
right,
live
well.
just a couple hours from Missouri.
Well, maybe you should come down to the showdown then, dude. It's in
Well,
Dixon.
I'm going on vacation on Saturday.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I would love to, but yeah.
Yeah, so George, you and Dave and Harry have your live stream this weekend?
I think so because last
Yep.
week we did.
Sunday.
Okay, sure.
Sunday.
We
Yeah, so
will.
if you guys want more custom car buildings, tips, tricks, the Masters will be at it on Sunday again. Don't forget to join in. Follow George, Area 51, Shotgun Dave Customs Garage, Dick's Lockout Garage. There's all these great content out there, and yeah, I can't
Well,
thank
also
you
one
guys.
thing, you guys join the Home Racing World Forum. There's a
Yep.
lot of things
Yeah.
on there that are really aren't on the Facebook. If you want to see all aspects of slot car, and I mean all aspects, from HO to freaking a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of talented people on there that also scratch built that don't even have channels because they just do it themselves. That are really sharp, and you can see their work on the forum board. You post pictures, and you could get when you had a visualization of something, when you want to scratch build something, you take a photo of that, you put it in your mind, and you put it on the board, and you can duplicate something if you want. You gotta remember that's how some of this stuff I've done. I've duplicated some things and some things I made on my own. But there's a lot of stuff on there on the Home Racing World Forum. So it's homeracingworldforum.com. Make sure you guys join that. It's free, and there's so much information on there. I post on there. Dave does. Harry. We want to get the forum boards actually more flooded with people than Facebook. I know Facebook is easy because you post a picture and it goes on there. But if you go to Home Racing World, you could get more, information from that, from people that see what they're building and stuff. And there is a section for the showdown too, for the showdown proxies. And I have my own section there as well. And then there's stuff on building track, there's stuff on scratch building, there's stuff on proxies on all over the world. There is stuff on, plastic cars, like the regular NSR or whatever. There's a lot of information on there, so please join that. That's really, really a good thing to do.
There's a whole section on 3D printing.
Yeah, exactly. There's one on that too.
we could use Danny on there to he could become the HRW resident 3D printer expert.
I don't know about expert.
There's also a painting section too, isn't there, Dave? There's painting.
What's that?
Isn't there a painting section on the forum board too?
Yep, there's a painting section. There's a scratch building section. There's sections dedicated solely to 132, 124, 125, HO. Yeah, if you can't find it on HRW, it does not exist. I guarantee that.
Or something nobody would do because it'd be ridiculous.
It's a lot of archives there that if you just take the time to click and search, it's totally searchable. If you're looking for why doesn't my crown gear come off my 1979 Carrera piece of junk, then you can click on there and find it and figure out exactly why and fix it. And I'm not even exaggerating. Harry has spent many, many years archiving all this information. A lot of it is not video. You're actually going to have to read, but the more currently stuff is all video. So just go check it out. George is absolutely right. We need it. You should be there. If you're into stock cars, you should be at Home Racing World.
Yeah, and Harry is so approachable.
Yeah,
yes, Harry will help
most
anybody,
approachable person.
That is where I learned to build my track upstairs.
That's where I learned everything too. I learned everything from there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much once again, guys. This was awesome. It's been 2 hours. We've covered a lot of ground here. I can't thank Danny, Dave enough for doing this tonight. Thank you so much, guys.
Anytime.
Yeah, like you guys have any questions, like I said, just reach out everyone's pretty like easy to get access to. So,
Absolutely.
And Slackout
Yeah, send me a
Dojo,
message.
yeah, Slackout Dojo. You don't need nerve to join a live. You just need to show up. just
Yep,
just
need to
come on the
show up.
live stream. We're not gonna. There's nothing nerve wracking about live stream. It's just a bunch of guys jibber jabbering about whatever it is, toy cars. Okay, so yeah, feel free to join in anytime.
Everybody, barbecue party. America's birthday yesterday.
That's
USA.
right.
USA. I can
Yeah,
say
but-
the other word that Team
America.
America. I won't say it.
America.
All right, and this Canadian signs out now.
That's okay. You can celebrate too. Come on.
You're an honorary American, Raul.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, no. Well, Canada Day was like 2 days ago.
That's right.
Whatever.
Yeah, it
right?
was.
So it's like
Right.
one after the other. So, yeah.
But what do
But-
they do? Do they barbecue or? I mean, I don't.
They drink
Yes, we
moose
barbecue
head,
up here, George.
Or
Ain't
you
no
guys hit maple syrup? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what you guys do.
you know, George, you need to come up here. We're gonna show you. Gonna take you ice fishing. Okay.
All right, there you go.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We're gonna sign off here. I don't think
guys
Marty's
later.
doing a
Thanks for
live
coming.
stream tomorrow, so probably George will be in his place. But well, yeah, because Marty's busy all week this week, right? He said He said he was doing the thing. But anyway, if Marty's not around, George will be there. So don't forget about that. And then Sunday, you guys are doing your live stream.
I got another garden
Yep.
build still.
Yeah. Yeah. So take care, guys, and we'll catch up with you guys later.
Bye, everybody.
And
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you later, guys.
Bye.